Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing all well. I'm very excited today to have back Freedom Cole with us. Namaste, Freedom ji.
Namaste.
How are you?
I'm great. And end of the day for me over here.
Yeah. And end of the year almost too, right?
And end of the
It's
day,
kind of-
end of the year. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us today. And the topic that Freedom will be presenting today is 2 to 12 Argala. Argala, yeah.
212 Argala.
Well, Argala.
So I'll talk about what that means.
Yes, please. I'm very excited.
Have you learned much about Argala at all in general?
No.
Yeah. So there's Parashara has a whole chapter on Argala. It's like there's a whole chapter in Parashara Horus Shastra on Argala. And we also see it mentioned in Jiminy, but you would never know what it meant in Jiminy. Jiminy is these sutras. It's very small, and if you didn't know what Parashara was saying, you wouldn't be able to out what Jiminy was saying. But there's a whole chapter in Parashara, and if we look just in the table of contents of the first book of Parashara Horror Shastra, we can see that it's either chapter 31 in the which version is this? This is the in the Santanam version, it's chapter 31. In the other version, it is the Sharma version. It is chapter 33. So we can see it's in here. It literally it's I mean, think about a technique that has a whole chapter devoted to it, not just a verse inside of a chapter of all kinds of other concepts. This indicates it's a core concept in and of itself. And we find it after Parashar teaches the Bhavapadas first, Arudas and Upapada and everything of that nature. And then he teaches Argala, and then he teaches the Karakamsha, how to read from the Atmakarika. And all the other chapters before that are how to read from the Lagna. And so we have how to read from the Lagna. Then he says, what's the Aruda Lagna and what's the Upapada? Then he teaches Argala, and then he goes into the Atma, the Karakamsha. So it's giving us a very conscious plan of a layout of concepts. Now, just to footnote here, there's some people that say, oh, well, this was just collected at this time period, or oh, Parashara is not that, whatever conceptual. We see the Sanskrit of the verses are from about the 800 area, somewhere 800, 700, 800, 900 zone. That's when they were written down. The order that they were placed in, it's some of the techniques in here are super advanced. So, however they came down to us, they came down to us very consciously. And the order of chapters often will kind of mention um, uh, God, now listen to the conditions. So this chapter doesn't say it, but some chapters they'll tell you what was in the previous chapter. They're like, you just told me about this. Now will you tell me about that? And it kind of lets us know how the order goes, because in the ancient world, and I love to show this, chapters looked like this, and you would have a stack of them, and you could get the chapters out of order. It'd be very easy having a stack of chapters like this. In here is let's see with the screen if I can bring it up. We have the writing inside these leaves, and often this is a chapter, and if your cousin wanted to borrow the chapter on Argala, he could come over and just borrow the chapter. He didn't have to borrow the whole text. And so we have these ways that let us know where the chapter is supposed to be in the actual text. And so it's not an accident, and it's very conscious that he's putting it after the Arudas and before the Karakamshas. And the teaching in the tradition, and whenever I say the tradition, I'm talking about Pundit Sanjay Roth. and his family tradition. And I'm just gonna, from here on, if I say the tradition says, I'm referring to Pundit Sanjay Rath's family tradition. And his tradition teaches that it's there because Argala applies to Lagna, it applies to the Aruda Lagna, and it applies to the Atmakarka in the D1 and the D9. So it's a technique that we are using in all these places. And we also use Argala from the Lord of the Dasha and the Antardasha Lord. So, it's technique that we're using all over the map, right? So super crucial. All right. So you got how big it is, how embedded it is, how core it is, right?
Thank
So
you.
so what is it? What is this concept of Argala? And right, that's our next step. Our first step was to get like this is a valid thing that is here that Parashara is teaching. Do we see it in the Varaha Mihira tradition? We don't see it being used regularly in the Varaha Mihira tradition. When I say Varaha Mihira, I'm talking about Brihat Samhita, Brihat Jataka, Horasara, Jataka Parijata, Saravali, Phaladipika. When we start looking, we don't see them using Argala. But we see Brihat Parashara Shastra using Argala. We see Jaimini using Argala, which lets us know that because people use the word Parashara Jyotish very loosely. And a lot of times they'll say, oh, this is Jaimini or oh, this is Parashara. And they're literally just making it up. They're not referring to what's actually in a text versus what's not in the text. And when we use the term Parashara Jyotish, Argala is something that we find in Parashara as well as Jaimini that we don't see in a lot of the other texts. So this is a specialty of Parashara Jyotish, our next core concept, right? A whole chapter given to us. Um, the next thing, like what is this thing called Argala? And so Argala is Santanam interprets it as intervention. What do we have? They both are. Santanam normally copies. Sharma normally copies Santanam's translations of terminology. So he's translating it as what planet is intervening. And uh, if we want it to be specific, the word Argala means bolt. It's kind of like what is the thing that you lock the door and give the result will be locked into place. It's not changing. It's locked in here. And if we actually look the verse 2 of this chapter says Maitreya. And actually, let's do verse 1 first, so it plays in the verse. In verse 1, Maitreya says, "O one giving blessings, you have spoken of the goodness that will be given by Argala. I am anxious to hear the particulars of these results, O sage." And then he says, and then Parashara replies, Maitreya, that which is called Argala gives definite, dridda, results of a house, and the fixed, the stira results of the planets. It will be expounded greatly by me. So stira and dridda, these are he's talking about fixed results. He's talking about things that are locked into place here. So so Argala it literally means the thing that's locking in the results. And but intervention is how it's translated, more from a perspective of meaning of how we're actually using it. And so we'll talk today just about the 2 and the 12 Argala. But the concept of Argala is that the second and the 12th house are always having an interaction. That what's in the second house from your lugna is impacting the 12th, and what's in the 12th house is impacting the second. And they're almost like pulling at each other. And if we think about it, planets in the 12th house are making you spend money. Planets in the second house are making you gain and save money. And so there's this pull, like, are you spending or are you saving? And if you're saving, you're not spending. And if you're spending, you're not saving. right? So we're being pulled in one direction or another. So that is our first Argala. I'll
Mm.
mention the other Argalas, even though we won't go into them, just for conceptual purpose. Then there's the 3 and 11. So the third house and the 11th house are impacting each other. And the 11th house is saying it's the what's coming in. It's the things that are coming in. The third house is I have to get. I have to go and take. I have to make happen. And so if I'm going to make happen, I'm not waiting around for somebody to give. And if I'm waiting around for somebody to give, I'm not going out and making happen. So which one of these is which way is pulling? And this becomes really important when it for business astrology to really figure out which kind of business is going to be more ideal. Then we have the 4 and 10 axis, and the fourth house is making it so that you get to do what you want to do with your time. And the 10th house says I have to work. And if I'm working, am I doing what I want with my time or am I doing what my client wants with my time? And it's very rare to go to work and the client says, "Okay, what are you going to do?" And you say, "Well, I'm going to go swimming." The client's paying you to do something. And so the 10th house is planets in the 10th house make it so that your time is doing what other people want you to do. Where the fourth house, that's your time doing what you want to do. And it's that pull back and forth pull between those two because there's only so many hours in the day. Then we have the 5 and the 9 axis. And the 5 and the 9 axis is the fifth house is what you want to do. Meaning uh, the fourth house is what you want to do with your time. The fifth house is the decisions you're making.
Mm.
Uh, if you're going to give a lecture, you get to choose what the lecture is. That's fifth house. The ninth house is somebody saying, I need you to lecture on this. If it's time to buy a new car, does your insurance company, if you crashed a car, does your insurance company say you can only buy this car or that car? They limit you. That's the ninth house. Where the fifth house says, here's a check, whatever car you want, and you get to choose which car. So are you making the decision or is someone else making the decision for you? That's the 5-9 Argala. And if someone else is making a decision, it means you're not. And if you're making the decision, it means someone else isn't. Now, this Argala becomes really important in a lot of areas, but one that I use it all the time for, and actually less and less. I'm like actually rolling my eyes up thinking less and less because this was an important technique for arranged marriage or love marriage. Because are you going to make the decision or is someone making the decision for you? Planets in the ninth house, someone's making the decision for you. Planets in the fifth house, you're making the decision. If the seventh lord is associated with one of them more than the other, then it's leaning that direction for marriage, right? But you can't have an arranged marriage and a love marriage. It's there's one or the other happening, right? And I say it's funny. I don't have to. I used to 20 years ago. It was a lot bigger of a question. I don't get that question as much anymore. Different generation, right? Getting married
Yeah.
now. And then we have the 6-8 Argala. And notice how it's almost mirrored around in the chart. And the 6-8 Argala, uh, here the eighth house is actually beneficial compared to the six. You know, we often think of the eighth house as being the more dangerous house and the sixth house being the not as dangerous as the eighth house. But from an Argala perspective, and remember, Argala is from Lagna, from Aruda Lagna, from Atmakarka, and from the Dashana, the planet lording the Dasha. So that means a planet. If I had a choice of do I want a planet in the sixth or the eighth from my Lagna, Aruda Lagna, Atmakarka, or Dashanath, I'd rather have it in the eighth any day.
Mm.
from an Argala perspective, I'll say. And the reason from an Argala perspective, and there's good and bad in everything, right? But this is one of the good things of the eighth house. And because the eighth house, a planet there allows you to be changing things. It allows change to happen. Now, if there's a benefit there, it's change that you want to do. It's like, okay, it's time for me to rebrand. I'm going to change all my colors and change the name and make a new picture. That's a Mercury in the eighth house from the Dashanath. It's showing you get the change in a good way. Malefic kind of kicks you. You have to change. It wasn't exactly. Maybe you get sick, so you have to start eating healthier, or there's an accident, and so you start driving in a better way. So there's. But it's still creating generally a transformation. The sixth house, from an Argala perspective, is blocking the transformation in that it is making there be complications where, like, imagine somebody who, like, one of the things I bought a house that has a legal issue with my neighbor. And literally, I walked in. I'm like, no one else would. I got a good deal on the house because who wants to buy a house that you buy with a court case, right? It was worth it for the view, but there's a bunch of changes I want to do. I want to build a deck on the house. I'm not building the deck until the court case is done now. So that court case is blocking me from allowing to make the changes that I want. Or think about if somebody, I remember in Delhi where they were going through and breaking all the porches off of houses because people had built too into the road. Imagine if you want to build that porch, but you can't because now they're cracking down on it and you got to wait. So that's the sixth house saying, nope, you can't change your porch right now because they're not going to allow it. So that sixth house, it holds back the transformation by creating all kinds of legislation and rules and problems or disorders. And so in this case, the eighth house is a much more supportive house than the sixth. So that's our primary and our our primary Argala's houses of Argala and Argala interaction. Um, Now, there's to be more specific, of those, one is always better than the rest. Like when I talked about the fourth and the 10th house, which one would you rather have?
Only fourth house tell you can work your way, right?
You
Don't,
can do what you want, but you have two planets in the 10th house, right?
yeah.
So you having two planets in the 10th, you're always having to work in this. Your time is being sucked into the workplace all the time. And people with like lots of 10th house planets, even if they retire, then they're still joining an organization where they have to run and work and take care of people, and they're not going off and doing their own big projects in general. And so it's the fourth house that is the called the Argala house, the one that's really giving the good results. And the 10th house becomes the Virodha, meaning the one that's making you do something, where the Argala is the one that's giving you the opportunity to have a little bit more for yourself. So when we look at the 212 Argala, the second house is the Argala house. That's the money in the bank account. And if you have lots of money in the bank account, you get more freedom to do what you want, right? And so Argala is when people, and I don't want to bring it into free will or not free will, but Argala gives us so much more free will to accomplish what we want. Argala really lifts us up. If we have more money than expenses, we can do so much more. And so the 12th house is what they call Virodha, meaning that which is holding back this Argala, this support to do everything that you want to be doing with your time. So you got the basic concept there. So that's our concept of Argala. So and so we saw Argala's in Parashara. It has its whole own chapter, and I gotta stress it. It's like it's its own chapter. Planets have their own chapter. Signs have their own chapter. Aspects have their own chapter. You have to be a core concept to get your own chapter, right?
Mhm.
So the fact that Argala has its own chapter is telling us it's a core concept. And so we saw that we're looking at the 212, 311, 410, 5, 9, 6, 8 from the Lugna. And when we just went through everything we talked about, that was Lugna significations. There's a slightly different interpretation from Aruda Lugna relative to image and reputation and things of that nature. Then if we go to Atmakarika, again, slightly different interpretation of what the soul is doing and how the soul is approaching the world and what the soul is wanting. Is the soul here to work or is the soul here to do what it wants to do? Yeah. Is the soul saying, I'm going to XYZ or, oh no, for this life, I need to serve my guru. I need to work and help and do all of this. Or am I going out and making something happen that I've come here to do, not what they've told me to do? So we can, we're getting a slightly different tone of interpretation depending. And then when we go to Dasha, and that was kind of what I was really thinking of explaining a bit is, and we'll do just Lugna, that way we don't get too complicated. But
Sure.
um, the difference between what is the Lugna 212 versus the Dashanath 212 versus the Antardasha 212. And that's where I see a lot of people by the time they're just like, wait a minute, there's this and but this and this and it starts to get confusing, right? So first, let's go deeper into the 212, understand it from Lugna a little bit more, and then we'll turn on Dasha and see how we can use it in Dasha. And it makes forgiving, if somebody gets good with Argala, it gives a like um, a great sauce on food. The planets and houses and yogas being created and which sign and nakshatra, that's like this food. Argala is this incredible sauce that allows us to really flavor things out and see how am I being pulled in the different directions in the different time period. And from Lugna, there's what you are. There's what your inherent tendency is. But in different time periods, that tendency is going to change. You're like, for example, for you, you have two planets in the 10th house. So your inherent tendency is to be, what do I have to do for work now? Okay, got to get to work, drop the kids off before work. Like there's this a bit of revolving around work. Now, if you had those two planets in the fourth house, you would be saying, no, no, I have this dream project I'm doing, and I got to drop the kids off so I can get back to this project I'm wanting to create. Or it would be that little bit of a different focus. It'd be your focus versus whatever the boss says you have to do right now. Now, that's your tendency from birth to death, and it's a tendency. We can shift it in different time periods, but it's your standard tendency. And if I look, let's see, Dasha right now, you're running Mercury. And so in your chart, from Mercury, we don't have anything in the 4 and 10.
Mm.
And so for this time period, there's a little less focus. You're not being tied to in the same way to the workplace as you would be, for example, for you in a Jupiter time period, because Jupiter time period has two planets 10th from it. So you go into a Jupiter time period and we're back to work all of a sudden. And if the Dasha says there's an extra work focus, and
Mhm.
that's your inherent nature, then all of a sudden we are work, 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 work because the time period, the boss is saying work, work, work. You have an inherent program that says work, 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 and then we're double, we're just, it's all about work.
Mm.
But in a time period like now, you have an inherent nature that says work, work, work. But your time period says, hey, let's have a little more work-life balance.
Mm.
And so your inherent nature is like, I want to work, and then you're like, let me, okay, like you're gonna hear a little bit more of, let me take some more time off, or okay, I know this project needs to be done, but you're gonna ask for a little extension, and you're gonna push it a little bit more to make sure that you are taking care of the family a little bit more, right?
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
makes sense.
So we have our from Lugna, our inherent tendency, and then we have how that's changing in the Dasha time period. So, and it's like this is turning into a 410 instead of a 212. We're talking about the 410. And I had wanted to talk about 212 just because that's the first one, right? Um, and and the thing is, the 410, there's um a little bit of subjectivity associated with the 410. Like, am I putting more energy into work than I am putting into my home? And you have to kind of make a judgment on that. So there's subjectivity. The 212, it's a little bit more objective.
Mm.
It's, are there more bills right now, or am I making more and saving more?
Mm.
And I want to be careful to say making more just because making more is 11th house and saving more is second house. But that second house, that's how much money you have. And if you have more money, then it means you're making some more, not always. But just to differentiate 11 and 12, 11 and 2 there for us. But so the second house, it's, am I putting money away? Am I having more money in my pocket? Am I, investing a little bit more? Because that second house is the 10th house to the fifth.
Mm.
And the fifth house is the house of investment. And the work of investment is your bank account. Your bank account's job is to be investing that money into safe places. So, am I getting money? Am I putting it into the bank? Am I putting it into investment areas? Or do I have too many bills right now? And too many expenses, and we need a new XYZ, so I need to spend. And so again, just like I said, we have our inherent nature and we have our time period. And so if your inherent nature is two planets in the 12th and nothing in the second, then spend, 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 spend. Now, if I saw a chart that had two planets in the 12th that was said, I'm spending more than I'm putting away and saving, and the husband had two planets in the second and nothing in the 12th, then guess who I'm going to put in charge of the bank account?
The one with two planets in the second
One with
house?
two planets in the second, exactly. And so by putting him in charge of the bank account, his karma is going to be making sure that we're not spending as much. And this is why sometimes somebody can work for a company and balance the books and the budget really well for a company, but then in their own life, it's a complete mess because in their own chart they have planets in the 12th without the second, but they go into work, the company has planets in the second, particularly if it has a good muhurta. It's got a strong second house, nothing in the 12th, so it's saving money, it's generating money, it's using the money properly, reinvesting it into the business and moving it around in the right way. That's a good second house for a company. So whenever we're doing a muhurta for a business, always we want planets in the second and not in the 12th. And yeah.
So what if somebody has one planet in the 12th and one planet in the second? So it's like 50-50.
So that is according to Parashara, it's called a bandhana. Let's see.
Okay.
And fifth, see where he says it. He says, no, I'm not finding this the verse, but um, so if there's one in each, they're kind of it's and I'll use the example. I like to for Bandhana, I like to use the example of the 5-9 Argala because if you have a strong opinion, I want to do this, but your dad says no, 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 you should do this. And then you're like, Dad says this, but I should do this, Dad. And then do you make the decision or do you spend how long does it take to make? All of a sudden, a decision that could have been made in 2 minutes is taking days or weeks to process and make because you're in a conflict between your opinion and Dad's opinion,
Mhm.
or your opinion and Mom's opinion, or your opinion and the boss's opinion. We're not able to get that easy situation done. Now, bringing that up, if we're looking at employees, I have a few business clients where literally I look at the chart of all their employees, and I help them like which role should this employee be in, where should we put them, how to organize them so they best fit into the company. And if we want an employee who we can just tell them what to do and send them off and they don't have to come and be micromanaged, find somebody with fifth house planets and nothing in the ninth. They will go and manage it. They're like they want to manage it themselves. If we want somebody who's not kind of doing it themselves, but they're just following every rule to the T. And if something changes, they ask the boss before a difference. Let's get an employee with planets in the ninth for that. Because they're people who they listen to the boss, they're limited by the boss. They're not going to do it if the boss didn't tell them. And I drive my own guru crazy sometimes. I drove my dad crazy, and I drive my guru crazy because I have 3 planets in the fifth. So they're like, you should do this, and I'm like, maybe. And I'm like, they're like, work on this chapter, and I'm like, yeah. I'll think about it. And then next thing I know, there's a huge thing and months going into a different chapter because my fifth house it's kind of I'm being guided but not that guidance has to come from inside and you see how beautiful Argala is understanding this dynamic
Yes.
of um, if we somebody whose spouse has fifth house planets and nothing in the ninth, do you think they can tell their spouse what to do? It's impossible. Like, why would you try and tell your spouse that has fifth house planets what to do? All you will do is create fighting, arguing, problems. If your spouse has fifth house planets, you have to figure a way out to make it seem like they came up with the idea. Give them the information, give them all details, but don't tell them the final thing to do. Make them be like, oh my gosh, if this only caused this and this is here and that's, wow, let's do this. And then they think they came up with it. And then no argument whatsoever.
Yeah, very interesting. I can think of few people, yes, 100%. But it doesn't matter which planet is there, or it doesn't matter.
100% matters which planet.
So
So
yeah, if some planets are easier than the others in the fifth house.
so each Argala is going to be different, which planets are good and which planets aren't. Okay. Um, but if they're malefics, the malefics give bad advice in general. So if they're malefics in the fifth, then you are doing your own bad advice. If the malefics are in the ninth, then you're getting bad advice. So if it's Rahu or Saturn, and it's the Vayu Grahas that give the worst advice in the ninth house, Saturn or Rahu, they give really tough advice. If we have a bandhana where there's Saturn or Rahu in the ninth, and there's a Sattva Graha or a Shubha Graha in the fifth, oh my gosh, let's do something to make that Shubha or Sattva Graha stronger so that they don't take the advice from the ninth house. And then
Mm.
sometimes it's the opposite. We might have two, like imagine Rahu and Mars in the fifth house, and we have Jupiter in the ninth. They're doing their own thing because there's two planets there and there's only one in the ninth house. We got to do something to make Jupiter stronger because Jupiter is giving all this good advice and they're
Mhm.
doing all these decisions. They're listening to themselves but they're listening to themselves as beating things up, doing it this backwards way. So it definitely matters which planet is giving Argala and which one is blocking Argala.
Okay.
And so going back to our 212, which was my goal, right? My goal was to only go super deep into 212, but it's some rules are easier to explain with different houses. And so if we look in the second house, of course, we want benefics,
Mm.
right? Because benefics are giving um, money that came through clean means. Yeah, like when I say clean means, sattvic means like if like Saturn in the second means maybe it's coming through labor, maybe it's coming through oil stocks, maybe it's giving us is the karma ideal for that graha. If it's Shubha planets, then generally it has cleaner karma associated with it. And in the same way, if we look at the 12th house is what these expenses. So if you have Jupiter in the 12th house, then you're spending lots of money on education, lots of money on workshops, lots of money on pujas, lots of money on your kids, all these Jupiterian things. That's okay. So if you're going to spend a lot of money on things, that's a good thing to spend money on. If Rahu's in the 12th house, then the person is spending money on gambling. They're spending money on substances that they shouldn't be taking. They're spending money. It could also be Rahu in the 12th gives shocking expenses. So that's like the roof was blown off the house in a storm. Who saved up enough money to build a new roof? New roofs are really expensive.
Yeah.
And and if your roof and it wasn't like you were expecting to have the storm blow the roof off, right? So that's a Rahu in the 12th house. Now remember, that's I'm talking 12th house from Lugna, but we also have 12th house from the Dasha Lord. So there's going to be a time period where Rahu is going to be 12th from the Dasha, and we can use this. We use it primarily as far as dasha goes from the graha dasha. Because if we're using Rashi dasha, there's different rules for the houses, and the Argala it does apply, but there's other rules that feed in to if you look at the dasha um, the Charadi Dasha Adhyaya, the chapter on interpreting sign dashas, you'll see it gives slightly different rules. Those rules are primary, Argala is secondary, just to differentiate. Um, and and I didn't really talk about house because I'm primarily focused on 212, but I could also look at the 212 from the fourth house. And so let's say I was thinking about buying a property. The 12th from the 4th is expenditures to the property. It's things that are expenses to the property, where the second house is gains that are going to be coming in through the property, things that are supporting the property. And I'm giving away like this is tradition secrets here, I guess. I don't know if secret's the right word, but like the sweet sauce of the tradition, the why am I thinking of sauces right now? It's such it's one of the essential magic points of Argala is I go over to the D4 for property and that Argala tells me what all the houses are going to mean. So
Mm.
every house in the D4 is having a meaning relative to the fourth house if I use Argala from the fourth. If I go to the D10, I can do Argala from the 10th house in the D10, and that's showing me how every house in the D10 is influencing my career. So I can go through all the Varga charts and I take the Karaka Bhava and I can apply Argala. So Argala is it's literally it's and that's what I said. It's such a core fundamental principle. It's not just this one little thing that I apply on a surface area. It's from Lugna, it's from Aruda Lugna, from Atmakaraka, from Karakamsha. It's from every single house in Rashi and all Vargas. I mean, how profound of a concept if really if you think about that, that's profound. That's everywhere that Argala can be used, and Argala is giving details. Um, and so somebody that has a lot of planets in the third house, they're always going to be putting a lot of effort and energy into their house. Like Rahu in the third house, there's going to be always these expenses on the home that you never imagined. And so and benefics in the second from the fourth, there's always going to be property values are always going up. There's always a way to find somebody to rent who's very good on the, one of the hard things of having a rental is finding a good renter, right? So in the D1 and the D4, what do we have in that 212 from the fourth house? Like, should you have a rental? Are you lucky enough to get lots of good money from your rental? Hopefully, if there's planets in the fifth house. Now, who would think to look in the fifth house if we weren't understanding this concept of Argala, right? To understand these renters making money or whether this rental is going to be costing more than it's worth. And some people somehow they get that lucky rental that makes them lots of money, and someone else gets a rental that they're losing money on. And they don't understand, but my friend, he's just flipping his rentals and they're all good tenants. And why do I have this rentals that are always having floods and issues and all these expenses? So that's the 212 Argala on the fourth house. You're getting how powerful this two,
Very powerful.
right?
Very, very. Yeah, I'm really enjoying this. Yes.
And it's a Argala, it's a concept I appreciate greatly, and it's
Mhm.
that um, uh, that before Pundit Sanjay Roth started teaching it publicly, there's only there's a family in South India that I know was teaching it, but otherwise I didn't see anybody talking about it. It wasn't written anywhere. No one's talking about it. Not many people used it. I still see in circles outside of the tradition that I'm in, not using it too much. But so it's such a living core principle in Pandit Sanjay Roth's tradition.
Yeah, it's a beautiful principle, and it gets into finer details too to understand things much better.
Into details. So let's go into some details. Let's I wanted to we all know Donald Trump's chart. And I'll just 1946, June 14th, New York, New York, and my David Guru is saying 105359, which is probably 1054. Um, and and in his chart, we have Jupiter in the second, Mars in the first, and Sun and Venus in the 12th. And Donald Trump is one of these, and I don't know, is he a millionaire or a billionaire? I don't know which level he is. We probably would never actually know what he is for real, because I'm sure it's all hidden in different named companies, been in his kids and everything of that nature. But we can see he has Jupiter in the second, which is saying there's money coming in, there's money investing, and he's investing it in a smart way. But then he has Saturn and Venus in the 12th house, which means he's spending like as much as he's just like there's just spending, spending, spending. There's always these crazy expenses. And so we look at some of these millionaires and they're making investments. They might lose a little here, lose a little there. Trump, he's buying this, he's buying that. This is going bankrupt. This is failing. This is being successful. This, like, everybody knows how dangerous isn't the right word. How rash he is with buying and bankrupting and making and this
Yeah.
and that's because this 12th house, his innate tendency is he's a spender.
Mm.
Innately, he's a spender. He gets happier by spending than he is by saving. And if we look that he's got Venus there, Venus in the 12th house, person loves to spend on luxuries. So if
Mm.
we think about his, what he did, I don't know if you have seen what he did to the White House, but he in his office he gold plated everything. Like why does he need to gold plate it? But he gold plated everything, and he broke down the East Wing or the West Wing. I don't know which side of the White House it is. He's building a big, very fancy ballroom. Now he could have, if he had Mercury or Jupiter in the 12th house, he would have broke down one of the wings to do this extra special library of 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 manuscripts of laws and successful countries and successful things, and he could have maybe done a little research center in the White House where they all met to make decisions surrounded by books and knowledge. But no, he's got Venus there. And so what's he do? He makes a ballroom that is all decked out with things that are fancy, right? So, but that's what he wants to spend on. So, and we can see it there in the chart. And he also has Saturn there. Saturn is 0 degrees. And so in this case, Saturn being weak is actually beneficial because it's making it less of a pool to spend on the trashy, stupid things that Saturn likes to spend on, and the things that are going to be wasteful and maybe these startup companies that end up going nowhere and things of that nature. Now, he is at present, so we see that's his inherent nature. He's more of a spender than a saver, but he's money in the bank and he's investing it well. The money that he has with that Jupiter, but he's spending, he's spending. If we go into his time period, he's running a Jupiter time period right now. And being that he's running Jupiter, there's nothing in the Jupiter's in the second. He has nothing in the third house, and he has Mars in the first. So that means the 212 from Jupiter is it's a spending combination. So we have Mars. So this time period of Jupiter has him on one level. We could say, oh, Jupiter's in the second house. He's going to be making more money. He's totally going to be making more money
Mm.
because we're reading just our standard rules of what is Jupiter in the second house. Oh my gosh, he's making so much more money. There's so much more money coming in. He has so much more money in his bank account. Totally. The Argala doesn't invalidate that. That is still true. But of all this money coming in, is he saving it and is he putting it away? Or is he spending it on all kinds of things? And the Argala is saying that with all this money that's coming in, he's spending it as he's spending way more than he's putting away in safe places because we have a planet in the 12th. You followed that, right?
Yes. Yes.
And let's see if we look and uh if I look at the untard and before untard we'll do I'm thinking Atmakarka or Antardasha. Let's do Antardasha real fast. So we see his inherent tendency is a spender, and he's in a time period that's also showing spending. So we're getting I mean, and who knows how much like for you and me to spend a few extra $1,000 in a month is might be a lot. For him to spend a lot is it's like, oh, Argentina, let's give him $81 billion to help him out. Like we might get a good return on that investment. 81 billion. Who gives 81 million or billion, however much it was that he gave to Argentina last month? It's he's spending. Um,
Mm.
if we look, he's running Jupiter Venus. And for Jupiter Venus, the Antardasha that he's in, we have Mercury in the 11th house, which is 12th from Venus. And then we have Mars in the first, which is second from Venus. So we're getting a little bit of abundana there, right? And so for the time period is in, he's somebody saying balanced budget, balanced budget. And he's like, wait a minute, that was me. Didn't I say I'm going to balance the budget? And he's like, oh no, I'm stuck. I can't spend as much as I want to. And everybody and the Antardasha Lord has a lot to do with the people that we're interacting with. And so the people that he's interacting with are saying, oh, we can't spend too much here. We have to balance it this way. So everywhere he's being surrounded by people that are supporting him to kind of balance the expending and the saving. That's the temporary time period that is being that it's working really and notice my eyes. I'm like it's working really hard to mitigate his tendency to just spend. And he just wants to spend. He wants to spend, being like, we're gonna make it back. No worry, my Jupiter in the second, we're gonna make it back. This time period, he's being a little more balanced. In May of 2027, he goes into Sun. And in the Sun time period, the Sun Antardasha, so he'll be in Jupiter Sun. Now, from Sun, Sun is the Lugna Lord in the 10th house, which is beneficial in general for success in business and things to be more prosperous. So that should indicate um, good finances, but is he spending all those good finances or is he investing them into good ways? And if we look from his sun, he has nothing in the ninth house, which is 12th from his sun, and he has Mercury in the 11th, which is second from his sun.
Mm.
So it's showing that when he goes into the sun, he might be right now he's struggling with his desire to spend as much as he wants. But he's trying to be balanced, but it's difficult. When he goes into the sun Antardasha, all of a sudden we have nothing in the 12th and we have Mercury in the second. And Mercury is going to be like, I know you want to spend, but we're going to invest in some things that are going to be really generating more wealth. And we got to right now focus on that, not on spending. And so we're going to see. And notice I'm talking about him and I'm talking about the country at the same time, because if you look at Modi's chart, but Modi's chart will also tell you how India is spending versus investing. The president's chart, it's so important to like people that elect a president who has bad financial combinations. It is the silliest thing in the world. If the person can't if the person is like, sometimes people complain, oh, the rich people are the ones that win in politics. It's better off for the whole country. Because if they can on their own have the karma to be prosperous, elect them so they can make the country prosperous. And some people say, "Oh no, this person is a school teacher and that's why they don't have money." No, they're a school teacher, but they don't have money. Even a school teacher can invest in the right thing that makes them a millionaire, so that they're just teaching because they want to. And and so we want wealthy people to be our presidents because they help support a wealthy country. But we can see in the sun time period that he's going to be investing in better things. That means the US is going to be investing into things that are really saving money and generating finances for the country as well as for his businesses. And then he will be 2028. Let's see. It was 2028. Very end, we'll get just a little bit of his moon. time period. And from the moon, we have nothing in the 2 or 12. And because we have nothing in the 2 or 12 there, we're going to, it's this kind of balanced time period for the Antardasha. But because the Antardasha isn't bolting in a certain way, he's going to default back to the Mahadasha and his innate tendency, which is to be a spender.
So basically, if somebody in general from Lagna has, um, for example, no planet in the second house, but some planets in the 12th, dashas can change it, or antardashas can give them the period of times where they can move from or balance it or move from overspending or spending to saving or investing.
Exactly.
Thank God for that one, right?
Exactly. And and also when people are like, "Hey, how's my business going to do this year?"
Mm.
Let's look at the Antardashas and start seeing, okay, what do we are is this person spending more or making more? And we can use the business chart, but depending how they have their bank account set up, if it's a smaller business where the money goes into their account, then their chart has a big impact on whether their business is going to be making lots of money or spending lots of money in that particular time period.
Interesting. This is
Yeah.
so amazing.
So we talked about from Lagna, Mahadasha, Antardasha. Let's just do a quick look at, um, and so in Trump's chart, he's a sun, Atmakarka, of course. And I say a sun Atmakarka, of course, because sun Atmakarkas know that they are right and that they're the best at whatever they do. And we know that Trump, he's a perfect sun Atmakarka example. And others might have their sun toned down in other ways, but uh, Trump, we know, has doesn't he lacks a certain filtration there. And he lacks that filter partially because he's like, of course, I'm right. Why do I need to filter what I'm saying? Right? It's there with that sun Atmakarka. And if we look in the Navamsha from his sun, he has nothing in the second, and he has Jupiter in the 12th. Now, that means that is he a hoarder? Or is he, and I don't want to use the word hoarder in a bad way. Is he somebody who's like coming here to accumulate and build wealth? Or is he coming here to try and spend money on good things? And we see, what is he actually doing? It's Saturn and Venus that he's spending most of his finances on, right? But if we look from his Atma, his soul, what he wants to do on a deep level is he wants to be putting money into education. He wants to be putting money into good institutions. He wants to be putting money into spiritual, religious, Jupiterian things. That's like as an intention that he has inside. That's what he's coming with. What he ends up doing is not always that because we see how because what we actually do is is your soul guiding you or is your lugna and head guiding you? Now, if he really tapped into that soul spiritual level, he would be such a philanthropist.
Mm.
Instead, he's got this sun Venus, so he's building the ballroom. He's feeling like, wow, I'm giving so much because his Atma says that. And but he's really putting the money into luxury, right?
So he has no planets in the second from his Atmakarka, just the
Nothing.
Jupiter in the 12th? Okay.
Yeah.
Mm.
And so notice it, we're interpreting that the soul's intention, right?
Mhm.
And if we look from the soul's intention, he has Saturn and Venus in the 11th from the Karakamsha.
Okay.
And so that shows his soul wants to make lots of money. And Venus says, I'll make money in good ways. And Saturn says, I'll make money in any way. And
Mm.
so what did he used to? He used to have a casino. So a malefic like Saturn or Rahu or they're going to give casinos or whatever. It's this is good for money, right? Saturn in the Navamsha also can show financial gains through properties, vastu. And so he has buildings and things of that nature. We see
I see.
nothing. He has his fourth and tenth from the Karakamsha are empty. So it's a little flexible there from a soul level. And from a soul level, there is nothing in the fifth, and we have Mars in the ninth. So from a soul level, he's looking for guidance. Like, whose philosophy am I going to follow? So his soul is looking for guidance. We go back and we look at Lugna, and from Lugna, he has nothing in the fifth or ninth. So he's a more flexible, he is somebody who, even though he comes off, I got the best this, I got the best that. He doesn't have lots of planets in the fifth. So he's open to hear other people's opinion. Now, how he does, and other people's opinion do influence him. And so this is something where people who, I'll call them Trump haters, people who hate Trump, really, if you just send out hate, what's it do to make the world a better place? It doesn't. It makes the world a darker place. It's going to make sending hate to anybody is going to hurt their consciousness. It's going to make him make even worse decisions. Like
Mhm.
literally, if people we see he's somebody that does listen, and he has ninth lord in the first house. It means he's very open to listening to other people's advice. So
Mhm.
people should be praying, uh, Bhagwan, please bring him good advisors. Bring him
Yeah.
the best advisors. Bring him, and whatever policy somebody thinks he's doing wrong, pray that he's getting the advisors that. And for me, I like to have very open prayers. Like instead of saying, pray that he makes immigration XYZ, say, pray that he gets good immigration advisors. Good. Let Bhagwan decide what good is.
Mhm.
And so by praying for the best advisors to come, we are making because the U.S. being one of the largest superpowers on the planet, what the U.S. is doing it influences the tone everywhere. And if we can pray that he has the best advisors, his ninth house is open to listening. His 5-9 Argala is open to listening. Oh my gosh, then things are going to be going in the right direction. This is a guy who does listen. And everybody thinks, oh, he's so this, he's so that. Who cares what he is? He takes advice. Let's pray for good advisors. And let's wait for this sun time period where he's investing more than he's spending, right? Um, yeah, so welcome to the 212, the concept of 212 Argala. And not intentionally, it just fell out of me. All the other Argala elements, I didn't go too deep into the other Argala elements, but welcome to Argala.
That's so interesting. And I'm glad I know even we 212, but I'm glad you had a little bit mentioned about the other ones too. It was really nice for me to learn as well. So if somebody, for example, if somebody has no planets in the ninth,
Yeah.
just an example that you just gave, then we're looking at the Lord where it goes, right? That's how you looked at it. Yeah.
It's actually it's not where the Lord goes as much as it is the sign strength.
Okay. Hmm.
So like for Trump, he has nothing in 5-9. Or let's stay with our 212. Let's say somebody has nothing in the second or the 12th house. Then we look which is the Lord stronger? Which one has a stronger Lord? If one has an exalted Lord, that's going to be the one giving bigger results. Which one, and this is where Rashi Drishti becomes important, which one has more Rashi Drishti aspects, with Mercury and Jupiter being the stronger, more important aspects. So if Jupiter or Mercury are aspecting one, that's going to have a tendency to be the stronger, the giving the stronger results. Where the Lord goes, it's a tertiary impact. And the ninth Lord going to the ascendant, that is That's not Argala anymore. That's just a standard. The ninth lord, going to the Lugna, is somebody who is devoted to their teachers. And if we bring in Dasha here with this 5-9, since I'm not staying in my 212 goal, if he's running Jupiter right now, right? Jupiter Mahadasha, and he has nothing in the fifth house. And he has Rahu and Sun in the ninth from Jupiter. So the sun there, that's great. That's some great advisors. And that Rahu there is some really not good advisors. You know, if we think about his Qatari airplane, right? That's the Rahu in the ninth house right there. I'm sure that Qatari airplane came back with a Rahu advisor.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then he has the sun there. And the sun is showing that there's some sattvic advisors. So, do people really want to be sending hate his way? You send hate his way, you're activating that Rahu.
Mhm.
We really want to be sending the blessings of Shiva, the blessings of Surya. We want to be like, make his sun strong. Because making that sun strong from the Mahadasha Lord, he's going to be getting the most sattvic advice possible.
Mhm.
And we can see right there, there's an, two different advisors talking in his ear.
That's a beautiful principle, and thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, I learned a lot. Like I can just in my mind, right? So many charts coming up. I'm just trying to understand. That's so wonderful.
What do we title it? Welcome to Argala? Or because we did start
Sure.
in 212, right? It was
Yes.
gonna, my goal was 212, but we ended up going all, yeah. I didn't stay in bounds.
No, but I loved it. I think we just kind of got what each arc, like how it's gonna be like 5 to 9 to 3 to 11. Like, it's nice that you went in a little bit. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I learned a lot. Yeah. Thank you so much. And I hope you guys all enjoyed. It's always so wonderful for me to really have to talk and learn a lot from Freedom as always. Thank you.